Hello everybody, how are you? I hope everything is fine. Well, today's lesson is about WH questions. The questions made by WH words. Most of these words start with WH, like when, what, where, which, etc. Some of them start with H maybe. How many, how much. If you have seen my other videos, you know that I have told you that it's very important to be careful with auxiliary verbs in our structures. You know that I've told you that almost everything is done with auxiliaries. All changes are done with auxiliaries, and that's exactly what happens here. Before I give you the formula how to use this WH words, let me tell you that making questions is very important. It has been estimated that almost in any language, almost 80% of the time, you're either asking a question or answering somebody else's question. So it's very important to be aware of this structure when you want to produce or when you are receiving, both. Like I told you before when talking about how to make questions for yes-no questions, you remember we use the auxiliary in the sentence and bring it to the beginning. You're almost there. For instance, you say, he is my teacher. Is he my teacher? You just change the position of the auxiliary and the subject. In case of WH question makers, we also have the same. We also deal with a very simple formula. This formula works, I would say, more than 95% of the time, okay? So you use WH word, you bring it at the beginning, and then you have the auxiliary. And remember, auxiliary is either there in your structure, you can vividly see it, or based on the tense and the subject, you bring it. And you remember that the only exceptions are simple past and simple present, in which, okay, you either bring did or do or does based on the subject. You can clearly see the auxiliary. Okay, so let me get back to the formula. WH plus auxiliary plus subject plus the main verb and plus the rest of the sentence, and of course a question mark at the end. And remember that we do not bring the would-be answer to our question in our structure, okay? So that would be a little odd, unless you have a reason for that, okay? Maybe you want to sound ironic. You see how simple it is? Just follow the rule and then be aware of the exceptions. The exceptions are very few. For instance, if you're using which, what, or who, and you're making a question about the subject of that structure, you don't need an auxiliary. For instance, you would say, who constructed this university, this road, this whatever, or what keeps you alive? You don't use auxiliaries here, you don't need. So again, when you're asking about the subject of the sentence, you don't need to use any auxiliary. You can use how many, the same. How many parents came here? Because the parents were the doer of the activity, they were the subjects, so you don't need any auxiliary here. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a very good activity. It's a very good idea. You have books, you have magazines, you have internet, okay? You have text, English text. Just pick some, maybe a few lines, a few sentences, and try to see how you can make questions. Okay, so this is a very, very good exercise. I really recommend you, and I'm going to show you one example right now. Okay, I'm going to use a very long sentence, and then I see the information, what I can ask about different certain pieces of information or data, details, and use the WH makers like this. All right, so we have this example here. It looks like a paragraph, but actually it's a long sentence. So first I'm going to read this to you, and then let's see how many questions we can make about this text. Okay.
Last summer, Professor Roberts, a historian from Canada, traveled with his two daughters to Rome by plane to attend an international conference about ancient civilizations, where he gave a lecture on how the Romans built aqueducts, stayed in a small hotel near the Colosseum for 2 weeks, met several old friends from university, spent more than $3,000 on books and souvenirs, and promised his students that he would explain what he had learned when he returned. So as you can see, there are a lot of details here, and you can make questions about each particular detail with WH question makers. Okay, let's, for instance, start with who. And I'm going to highlight the possible answers. We start with who. Who traveled to Rome? A possible answer is, the only answer here, Professor Roberts. Of course, if you want, you can also add his two daughters. Okay, so because they went together. Now we ask with what? What did Professor Roberts talk about at the conference? And you can see that he gave a lecture on how, so he gave a lecture on how the Romans built aqueducts. Okay, so that would be the answer. When did he travel? Last summer. So I'm going to do them a bit quicker. So next question, where did he stay? So we can see, so you can say that he stayed in a small hotel. So in a small hotel near the Colosseum. And why did he go to Rome? So he went there to a conference. Okay, so he went by to attend. So this would be a good answer, to attend an international conference about ancient civilizations. And then, which ancient structure did he explain? You can see that this bit of information can be, there are different questions about it. Okay, so what is it? Aqueducts, Roman aqueducts, and it's been highlighted here. Another question would be, whose students did he promise to teach? So very simply, his students. And then, how did he travel? You remember, by plane. And how many daughters went with him? Two daughters. Maybe he has more, but just two daughters went with him. And then how much money did he spend? $3,000. How long did he stay in Rome? Yeah, somewhere it was mentioned for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. All right. And as so on and so forth, you can see that okay, these answers are vividly clear in this text. And sometimes you can, of course, ask, what's Professor Roberts' job? For instance, you would say, how many times before this occasion had he been to Rome? Okay, it's not mentioned here. We don't know whether it was his first trip to Italy or second or third or whatever. Okay, so if you think deeply and, as the English say, read between lines, you can come up with many more questions. Okay, you can do this with any text, as I mentioned before.
Okay, you saw how you use those question words. Okay, you can do it the same exactly. Just randomly open your books on different pages and then see the first line, the first or the last, whatever you like. Okay, you have used some text, a random text taken from anywhere, and then try to make questions about different details. And remember that you can also make imaginative questions. Maybe you don't have the answers vividly apparent in that text, but you can make using your imagination. You can make questions. Okay. Now what I'm gonna give you right now is give you some sample sentences in question formats for different WH question words, like when, what, where, the most important ones. For each one, I will give you 3 examples. I'm not going to read them. They're simple, okay? So you can just read them and exercise and practice yourself. so far so good. Now is the time for Imam of Aftabaz. You know that I've told you for any lesson we have, I'll at least give you one example using Khomeini, Imam of Aftabaz, okay, who brought misery to our country, Iran, and Aftabaz, the thing that he really loved, he and his kind. Okay, so truly I can make hundreds of examples, but no need. So I've used what and when and how many, and have made some examples. For instance, for what you can say, and then in these slides, because there is one question, I've given you one answer as well. The answer might vary, of course. So the first one, with what? What was Khomeini's wildest dream? Flying on a winged Aftabeh. Then with when, the question is, when did Khomeini get his first Aftabeh? You know that for anything you have a first and the last thing, okay? So Khomeini, when he was very little, he received the first Aftabeh, okay? So when did Khomeini get his first Aftabeh? On his first birthday party. And the last example, I'm going to use how many. How many Aftabehs did Khomeini eventually need? Just one 6 feet long. Okay, and remember here I said how many Aftabehs. When you're using how many, the noun after how many should be in a plural format, if there is the plural format. Okay. I hope you liked today's lesson. Unlike the other times, I'm not going to give you a summary because it was a short lesson. Instead, I'm going to give you a piece of poetry, English poetry. You know that one very good aim for you, for anybody who learns another language, is to be able to read the literature and enjoy the literature. Just suppose we Iranians, you see that we are very rich in our literature. If non-Iranians, if the new Persian language could read Persian literature and enjoy Persian literature, that would be fantastic for them. And for us, we are learning English, so we can enjoy the English literature firsthand. Now I've chosen a very famous poem titled "What If Much of a Witch of a Wind." You see, it starts with WH. This is a very famous poem by E.E. Cummings. He lived basically during the wartime and World War time. And in a way, his poetry reflects that time. He is a very interesting character because he tried to change the grammar of English and the usage of words, everything. He did, in a way, I would say, he did not pay attention that much. He was not that meticulous about following the rules, grammar, English grammar rules and the words. If you watch YouTube, you can see different clips about this poem. I noticed one by Mr. Don Yorty. He himself is a poet and an educator. I really liked his voice and his style in reading, okay? So I contacted him and asked for permission, and he kindly gave me permission to use his voice in my clips. I hereby thank him a lot. So I'm gonna play you the words of E.E. Cummings read by Mr. Don Yorty. I hope you'll enjoy that. Very well, I think that's enough for today. Looking forward to seeing you soon again with another lesson. Practice and be safe. See you next time. Until then, goodbye.
What if a much of a witch of a wind gives the truth to summer's lie? Bloodies with dizzying leaves the sun and yanks immortal stars awry. Blow king to beggar and queen to seem, blow friend to fiend, blow space to time. When skies are hanged and oceans drowned, the single secret will still be man. What if a keen of a lean wind flays screening hills with sleet and snow, strangles valleys by ropes of thing, and stifles forests in white ago? Blow hope to terror, blow seeing to blind, blow pity to envy and soul to mind, whose hearts are mountains, roots are trees. It's they shall cry hello to the spring. What if a dawn of a doom of a dream bites this universe in two, peels forever out of his grave, and sprinkles nowhere with me and you? Blow soon to never and never to twice. Blow life to isn't, blow death to was. All nothings, only our hugest home. The most who die, the more we live.